Hi everyone. So in the last video we were able to create an airdrop function. In this video we'll try to create a function called show balances, which will basically show you the balance given an account address. So let's create a new folder. Let's call it show balance and add a new file in there called index.ts. Let's export a function called show balance, and that takes in an argument which could be a string or a public key, but to keep things more generic and slightly cleaner, let's make the input argument a public key. This is actually pretty easy to do. You first create a connection like we did in the last video. And then you call connection.getAccountInfo. And if you see, the argument that it expects is a public key. So let's just pass that in here. And this is an async function. So let's await on it and make our show balances an async function. Let's try to log response here and see what it returns. Or we could also just go into the get accounts info and see what it returns. So it returns account info, and as you can see, it has an argument called lampports, which is the number of lampports that are assigned to this account. We saw in the last video that Solana/web3.js returns a lampports per sol variable. So what we can do here is just log or return response.lampports divided by lampports per sol, and that should most probably do it. So let's see the balance of the account that we created in the last video. Just copy over the public key from there to here and see if it logs the correct value. And it didn't return anything because we haven't logged what this function returns. So let's try to put the value that this function returns inside a variable, and let's call it balance. And you'll see as soon as we do that, the editor begins to complain because you can't really have an await at the very top level of a JavaScript function. And the way to fix this is that you define an anonymous function here and just paste the async code that you want to run here, and then let's just log the balance here and build that again. And maybe let's make the string a little more informative. The balance for the key is this balance. Let's put this key inside a variable as well. And then let's try to build that again. And if we run this function now, it returns that the balance for the key, this wallet address, is 10, which is what was the value in the last program. So now let's try to airdrop ourselves a bunch of tokens and then see if the value changes. Before we proceed on this, make sure you delete this line from the file that we coded in the last video, because this will basically keep on airdropping tokens to this wallet address, which is something we don't want. Then let's go back here and call the airdrop function here with the public key of this address and the amount of sol. Let's say we want to send them 5 sol. And now we'll basically try to get the updated balance for this user. Which will basically be await show balance, the same thing, a new public key with the public key of this user. And we'll try to log that again. So updated balance is, so the difference between these two should be 5, and we also have to await this function because airdrop is an asynchronous function. If we don't do this, it'll basically take some time for it to airdrop, and this log statement will happen before that. We don't want that, and so make sure to await on the airdrop function and only then move on from there. Let's try to build it and run it. And as you can see, the initial balance is 49 and the updated balance is 54. So that works as expected. That's all for this video. In the next video, we'll try to see how you can transfer tokens from one wallet to the other and how having a public key will not suffice anymore. You'll also need the secret for the user who's trying to transfer the key. So let's look at that in the next video.